You're tuned into the Unnecessary Harm podcast, where we drill down on issues of substance use and its cultural impact. Your host, Shane Varco, Executive Director of the Delgado Institute, with over 40 years experience in youth and community work and a passion for building resilience.
Welcome back to the Unnecessary Harm podcast. It's good to have you with us again. And for those who are visiting for the first time, hey, welcome on board. It's great to have you here. Today's guest is a global leader in public health advocacy, and that is no small accolade. She serves as the president of Movendi International, an incredibly long-standing global network of over 170 organisations dedicated to promoting health and development free from alcohol harm. Under her leadership, Movendi International has been at the forefront of advocating the WHO, World Health Organization, Global Alcohol Action Plan, aiming to reduce alcohol-related harm worldwide. She has represented the organisation at various international events and platforms, including the World Health Assembly, highlighting the impact of alcohol on sustainable development and public health. The work of Movendi emphasises the need for evidence-based interventions, policy reform, and global cooperation in protecting communities from the detrimental effects of alcohol and the predatory industry behind those harms. And it is a predatory industry. We'll get into that later. And besides all that, she is just a wonderful human being. Kristina Spikova, welcome to the Unnecessary Harm podcast.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for such a nice introduction.
No, it's fine. There's a lot more that could be said, but obviously time will get away from us. Look, Kristina, we're here in Australia. I'm not sure if it's a Northern Hemisphere thing, but we're in the midst of our Dry in July month. Have you heard of that particular project?
What did you say? No,
we're in the midst of the Dry in July month.
Okay, yes. I hear. Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Mm-hmm. It need to enunciate more. So look, we have a Feb fast in February, which again is a month free from alcohol, and October, which is another one, but Dry in July is our current one. So I thought it was really important to get you on. I think that's really relevant to where we are. And, it's really, just to be, while we're at it, a big shout out to those out there having a crack at going alcohol-free during July. Good on you. Abstinence is best practice for health and well-being, and it's a good thing to practice, and hope you continue after that. So a big cheers to the guys and girls having a go at that. Well done. But before we get into, the current issues and what's going on and happening, a bit of background history for our listeners. A lot of people, particularly in the Southern Hemisphere, won't know who you are, and some of them will because you are part of a big organisation, and we've got a lot of synergy there because the Delgado Institute, its original iterations go back to 1844. So we've got similar sort of backgrounds, which is really cool. I love that. But founded in 1851, there's over 778 organisations, 63 countries. So give us our listeners a bit of background and some insights into particularly the last decade or so when you've been really at the helm. How's it been evolving? What's been happening with Movendi?
Great. And also greetings from me to everyone who's doing Dry July. We can talk about that as well. I hope we will. About Movendi, what I would say in the latest decade is that we have modernized the organization a lot. We have focused on how we communicate, the issues that we are dealing with. We have worked a lot with involving communities. It's really very important for us that we are an organization that consists of people who are experiencing all the possible harm caused by the products and practices of alcohol industry. It's, of course, people who are in recovery, but also people who have even never used alcohol, are carrying this harm, are bombarded by different messages that are from the alcohol industry that are influencing also our confidence, our feeling about ourselves, our communities. So we have decided to communicate much more about these different experiences, and we have also in the last decade, and even more than that, we have decided to focus on the things that work, and that's the alcohol policy. So we all know how the economic situation for the organizations that are doing both prevention and treatment in this area is. There is very little funding. It's really underfunded area of work. And that's why the resources that we have, we need to use them really effectively. And the most effective way how to prevent and reduce alcohol-related harm is through alcohol policies. And the three best buys that WHO has declared, and there is lots of science confirming what is really working with availability, removing marketing and all the advertisement and sponsorship of alcohol, having public health oriented alcohol taxation, meaning that it will reduce alcohol consumption and also that contribute as a good consequence of course is also the contribution to the state budget. But these things are really working very well. They are called best buys. Now we know that they are also quick buys. So the effect comes very fast. Within a year, you can already see the effect of this. So that's what has been happening in Movendi. I would say the focus on people, focus on communicating the voices, and also focus on things that work really well and are effective.
Brilliant. And your messaging is become really sharp and really on topic and relatable. And I think that's really important. And I like the folding in of people. And you know, we're part of the network that you oversee, which is fantastic. And we are just seeing that evolution. And again, it's that invitation for people to be the source of change. And of course, policy, top down, bottom up, is absolutely vital and imperative. And that's why you do both and do it well. And so congratulations on that. And that's part of the leadership you and your team have brought to that space, which is really, really encouraging. So bravo, kudos to you. Good job.
Oh, thank you.
I love your work, as they say. But let's talk about some of the really serious issues. I mean, the United Nations have their Sustainable Development Goals, and very, very important global platform, globally declared, globally positioned. And the alcohol dynamic, the legal drug, well, other than tobacco, the other legal drug, and it does the most harm because it's legal. It's one of the biggest reasons for it. And we want to legalise other psychotropic toxins. We won't get down that road today. We'll just talk about alcohol, okay?
Yeah.
But let's talk about that, because we know that, I believe from my understanding, connecting with you guys and the research we've done, and obviously bouncing out of what you guys do, alcohol directly or indirectly affects 17 of those Sustainable Development Goals. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's 15. It's 15 out of 17.
Sorry, yep.
So there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
That's right.
And what we have made the analysis the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2030. They were adopted in 2015 by the United Nations, and the countries got 15 years to achieve those Sustainable Development Goals. So that's why it's called Agenda 2030. So already in the beginning, or even before, when the goals were formulated, but then really at the start of everything, we have analyzed all the goals. Back then, we came to the conclusion, which were it was all based on evidence. So, when I just randomly ask people how many goals, SDG goals, are affected by alcohol, then many people actually say all of them, because you have there everything. You have eliminate poverty, eliminate hunger, reach gender equality, improve education, improve economic growth, do something about the climate crisis. So the Sustainable Development Goals, they are really encompassing everything that our world needs to deal with. And people who think a little bit, they see but the harm is in all these goals, you can really see it. But the evidence back then in 2015, we had for 13 goals. But since then, we have reviewed the evidence 2 times. So now we are at 15.
Yeah.
So So it is, and it is, like it's actually very intuitive. Like when it comes to poverty, like people who live in poverty and use alcohol, like alcohol carves out from the expenses that they would use for food, for some kind of education. It goes to alcohol, then they cannot invest it, then they stay in the circle. It feeds it, and it also puts people into poverty. The same, it's very similar for hunger. When it comes to hunger, then it's also, we know, like when we look at it from the individual perspective, when people consume alcohol, the nutrients are not processed in the body as they should be. So then people are actually losing by that, but also by growing grains for alcohol or for food. So then it's education. Many families do not have money for education, as of course around the world, not all the education systems are free of charge for everyone, or maybe even if they are, but kids need to have, for example, uniforms in schools, and the families cannot afford the uniforms, so the kids don't go to school, or the environments that they have at home due to the parents' alcohol use. Very often it can be really difficult environment when there is some violence, or simply when there is no peace created for the kids to just like focus on being children and learning. So that influences, of course, their education results. Gender equality, there we see alcohol industry, a huge impact. During a long time, there was lots of sexualization, objectification of women. Shocking. When sometimes I have this kind of dilemma how to deal with it, because at one point you want to show the pictures and show how shocking it is. At the same time, you don't want to show the pictures. It's actually offending to see those pictures. So that is gender, but we can also look at the environmental perspective. The production of alcohol has a huge impact on environment, from waste in waters to distribution and air pollution, and again also changing the monoculture or creating monoculture in agriculture. That has also impact on small farmers that sometimes fall into the grips of alcohol industry and start growing seeds that are coming from one company, and then they cannot change anymore, like they are bound and actually dependent on this. So there are many of these things.
Literally hijacking productive land.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Just on that, the environmental factor. I mean, off the top of your head, because you're far more versed in this than I am. Just water use. I mean, one of the issues about we posted an article recently through our WRD news on the environmental impact of particular factories, alcohol, brewing plants. Factories, wrong word. Brewing plants on the environment. How much alcohol? Just one stat for those who are listening that may not be aware of this. How much water is used to make 1 litre of beer?
If I remember correctly, it's 270 liters of water to produce 1 liter of beer.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's your ratio. So to get 1 pint, you get that much water. You can imagine what that does to the water table, what it does to obviously to the natural resources. Kristina, when it comes to particularly, and I know this is kind of on the edge of, well, certainly it's inculcated into these goals, particularly when it comes to children, women, families, gender issues. The violence, and you've hinted at this, and if you feel uncomfortable going down this road, we won't do that. But we've watched this in our country. Familial, intimate partner and child abuse and violence is horrendous. Now we're adding cannabis and crystal meth and all that stuff, but alcohol still is the key driver behind this. When it comes to sustainable development goals, where does that kind of abuse fit into that context? How does that work?
So that would be the goal number 5, gender equality, and also goal number 16 that covers violence. So in both, we know the statistics, like it's 50% and more of violent acts are alcohol related. In some countries, we are looking at 80%, and that the same goes also like specifically for intimate partner violence. So the World Health Organization is actually recommending also alcohol policies, so to reduce alcohol consumption, to reduce violence. And the children should not be exposed to just witnessing violence. And
Correct.
Of course, they are also experiencing the violence
Correct.
on them. And then there is the spiral that they actually also very often can fall into and be violent themselves also.
Yeah, and the data is pretty clear on this. So I think, again, we've written extensively on this. But what happens is children that are children of, for the want of a better word, for the sake of brevity, alcoholics. It may not be alcoholics that do this. It could just be regular binge drinking. But these children themselves actually grow up, and if they may not even engage in substance use or alcohol use, but they become perpetrators in their own right because of the trauma they've experienced. And it's quite horrendous. And as you mentioned before, the cycle on this is quite disturbing, because it's not just about cause and effect. It's about it's cause and amplification. And that's what's really concerning about the intergenerational harms of this. And the industry continues to feed that, because addiction for profit industries live off consumption. That's a key issue. And of course, when you have an addiction, an addictive substance, then of course that's a great business model. Let's promote this and get this going. And of course, we all know, we've said this a number of times on this platform and others, that any business that wants to exist in 30 years' time must market to children, or if they can't market directly to children, enfold them into the narrative, enfold them, even if it's harmful. And harmful enfolding, even if it's abuse, even if it's subject to these environments, not necessarily abuse straight up, but that is subject to binging environments, alcohol-filled homes. That is the marketing of the highest order. Modelling as a marketing method is just horrendous. But look, thank you for that. I think that's really important for those who are uninitiated in the SDG space, the Sustainable Development Goals space. This is a really big deal, guys. I mean, you're talking 90% of the Sustainable Development Goals are influenced by alcohol. And I think for anyone in the dry July space, that's maybe for personal health, maybe to raise money for cancer or whatever it is you're doing, fantastic, love it. But I want you to think about that from a social justice perspective. What does that mean for me to participate in this on an ongoing basis? How can I add value to this process by staying away from alcohol from the end of July? Let's do September. Let's do October. Let's keep going. I think that's really important. Then get that social justice dynamic into your head on that. So thanks for that, Kristina. Look, the science is in on the health of alcohol. I mean, the three biggies that have landed in the last 10 years are really, really helpful for us. I mean, I grew up in an environment where alcohol was not part of my world, which is great. It became part of my world as a late adolescent, but it certainly wasn't my issue. And but I still remember my grandmother saying to me when I was in primary school and early high school, saying to me, "Oh, well, I don't drink, but a glass of red wine can be very good for you." Well, that was one of the old myths that used to parade around. Probably that was the last one that held out for so long, and we've just seen recently that's been tipped over. So that there is no health benefit from alcohol at all. So that's one of the lower ones. But the other two that are really interesting, and I want you to speak to these if you could. That when you got the World Health Organization, clearly that has a mandate and agenda, so it's on the side of health. So it's certainly not going to be leaning towards anything that's not healthy. We understand that generally. But when you've got some research platforms and some publications that tend to, well, they're supposed to be objective, but they can lean and flow with depending on who's paying for the research. But when you've got some of the biggest research platforms, one of the biggest literature producers landing in the last 10 years, we've seen it just evolve, saying, you know what, the evidence is in and it's clear. There is no safe level of alcohol consumption at all. That's landed. And the other big one I thought was really interesting that came out in the last couple of years is that alcohol is now is causal and or contributes to at least 7 cancers. So you want to speak into that, Kristina?
Yes, where to start, Shane? So, definitely the science has been developing, and that's great, because what has happened now, there is this really methodological insight. There was a huge methodological mistake when they were looking into the healthy benefits of alcohol. And that was that when they were comparing people who consume alcohol in smaller amounts and those who do not consume at all, then those who consume in smaller amounts, they came out as healthier. But the problem was that because in the group of those who have not consumed alcohol at all, there were people who didn't consume alcohol, for example, for health reasons, that they already had some health conditions, and that has been overseen. So that's why this group has been coming out as less healthy. So, and now we really see that this recognition of this mistake and then reconsidering of all the possible studies. So that is great, and there is like more and more really I can see it also in different media, like how they write about it and how they start really accepting this new knowledge, because that takes some time, as really so many people were so well trained in about the health benefits that do not exist. When it comes to cancer, I think that's also something that we know since 1988. That was for the first time when alcohol was by the International Agency for Cancer Research, IACR, that has been categorized as carcinogen number of group 1. So it's together in the same group as tobacco or asbestos. Alcohol is carcinogen. We know that. It causes cancer. You mentioned seven types of cancer, actually on the way through the body. So it starts with mouth and then through all the organs. Then plus in women also breast cancer. And I think that is it's in a way really dangerous. As at the same time we can see the increase of alcohol consumption among women. And that goes together with emancipation, that goes with the really alcohol industry targeting women. And the most ironic situations are when alcohol industry is supporting breast cancer or anti-breast cancer campaigns and research, like fundraising for breast cancer research, for example. Well, we know what is happening. So, and of course, that's their way of washing their name and all that. So we know that. So, but this is really important. The awareness about alcohol being carcinogen is low around the globe. So that has to be really increased. What we understand also is that when people get this connection, they are more supportive of alcohol policies and those things that work, what I talked about in the beginning, and the WHO recommends. So they might also change their consumption, but that's that would be a very the individual choice that is difficult very often in this environment that we are living in, being bombed, being expected to consume things, and that's why then the policies actually help people to live healthy. If I cannot get alcohol wherever I want, then I will not consume it whenever I want, and similar things.
Yeah, I think that's a really important issue, because there's a model the consumption model that we have adopted and use: accessibility, acceptability, and availability all increase consumption. And of course, your models like your pricing, placement, promotion, your 3 Ps. You reduce those, you reduce the whole awareness of it. But I like, again, the bottom up, top down approach is really, really important. Education and legislation work better together than education alone. And anyone who says, we just need to educate, not legislate, is selling you something. They are selling you something. And it's usually something that's not good for you. But I like the messaging that's coming through. And you're right, the cancer message is still lagging. And the Movendi's shout loud for change. As it was a great thing. You know, we did a couple of bits on that. Weren't as good as yours. You know, the resources and capacity to produce stuff is limited, but love that the model. Got some people involved in that, and it is surprising when you do talk about this. So people go, "Oh, you know, oh, everything causes cancer." Well, no, hang on a minute. Not everything causes cancer, but let's understand what this is doing. And you've made a beautiful little illustration. It starts with the point of entry down, and it works its way through the body. And when you start to unfold that, not in a scare tactic kind of way, we're saying, "Oh, this is really what's happening." And then you throw in the public health issue, the private health issue, the environmental factors. You're layering all these things. People start to go, "This is really not a good idea, is it?" No, it's not a good idea at all. In fact, if this came onto the marketplace today as a new drug, we probably wouldn't even get off the radar. Wouldn't even get a start. No. But what's interesting for us in our country, we had, and this is for the benefit of the Australian and maybe Southern Hemisphere, and perhaps some of the listeners in Northern Hemisphere weren't aware of this. Europe had a thriving nighttime economy. So alcohol was part of that, but a lot of European context, not all of it, because you've got various parts of Europe are a binge culture and a chronic alcohol consumption culture, but some of the sort of the more Western European countries tend to treat alcohol as a condiment. It's a kind of something that's not a binge thing, and they do that. And their nighttime economies are very attractive. You go out for dinner and a glass of wine. It's all very quiche. Now, what happened in Australia? We used to have a closing time was 6 o'clock, right? And our organisation fought against bringing that up to. They wanted to bring it up to 9 o'clock, right? I mean, we fought that tooth and nail, but was voted out. Back in 1997, there's a fellow by the name of, an old butcher his name in pronunciation, the Nuaus and the New Iceland report, who basically went to parts of Europe, selected parts of Europe like France, and went, "Oh, look, they've got this thriving economy at night. There's people are out having a glass of wine with their meal. There's no violence. There's no street chaos. It's all very wonderful." And he came back and said, "You know what? We should open up our liquor licenses till midnight." And then it just kept evolving. And, of course, we had shocking outcomes from that because Australia is a binge culture. We do not treat alcohol as a condiment. We treat alcohol as a central ingredient. In fact, we don't even need a meal. All we need is booze, and we get stuck into it, and away we go. So what's happened is it got let off the leash, and consequently we've got all these serious issues. And then you've got the alcohol pops and all the high alcohol sweet drinks that are pitched at young people and party and that whole scene. And, of course, you got your pink washing. You mentioned that. The pink washing with the whole women's, make it all very palatable to ladies. And we've even had labels here in Australia called Mummy's Juice or, that kind of stuff. And then, of course, you've got the haloing, the low carb products, this is actually healthy for you. So just on that, because I want to talk, part of it today is I want to talk to you and get your take because you've been in the grinder on this. You've been right in the middle of this. Yeah, we know the alcohol industry is predatory. That's a given, and most marketers are. We soften the language. We euphemistically refer to them as aggressive marketers, but the alcohol industry really, really is cunning, and they've tried all sorts of tricks, and big alcohol, big industry, even bigger lies. And in Australia, we've just recently had a win with Fair and Alcohol Change Australia, which Delgado is part of. We had a win with the alcohol advertising on television, which was really great. So it's going to slow down some things, and it's getting some more momentum towards a more, we really need to excise this from the public square. Let's get this off. But tell us about some of the bad actors you've bumped into in the space, if you can, without putting yourself in trouble, some of the bad actors you've engaged with, particularly in the UN space, and what are some of the tactics that big alcohol have tried to bring to the table to derail good policy and good public health policy?
So who we meet in a way, or who we face, is very often in the policy making. It's of course the producers themselves, and then there is the 10 biggest alcohol producers, among them AB InBev, for example, Heineken, Carlsberg. Those are big ones. Yep. But they also create front groups so they can easier access, because the industry is not allowed in all the spaces when it comes to United Nations and World Health Organization. Tobacco industry is completely out, alcohol industry is somewhere in between, but they have their front groups. The biggest one is the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking, as they call themselves, IARD. And the name is really confusing. So for people who do not deal with alcohol issues on a regular basis and do not dig deep like we are doing and like looking into the industry, it's like, oh, but these people are going to help me to establish responsible drinking in my country or globally and so on. And from those guys, who, by the way, also work very closely with tobacco industry, so they are also bringing in the practices and needs of tobacco industry into the space. So they are acting also like smugglers a little bit, but they are influencing the space. What they are doing is, of course, like they create close relations with governments also through economy. So they support building systems, they support building rebuilding infrastructure, or promise build the infrastructure, and then the decision makers are deciding, should we take the money and build it, and then of course will be very favorable towards any request that this industry is making. So that's one thing. The other one is also all the possible corporate social responsibility campaigns and actions they are doing, both together with government, like the industry has been doing a lot during the pandemic. They have been supporting governments with hand sanitizers, but in return there would not be limitations on alcohol sales in some countries. In some countries, alcohol was an essential. Yeah, exactly. So this is what we see. And then, of course, the more visible practices as marketing and sponsorship of events. So that like people and governments make themselves in a way dependent not only on the substance but also on the economy or the finances that are coming from the industry. And there are also really sad examples that, like, we talked about environment, we talked about women. So maybe I can mention one example that is done by actually AB InBev and their brand Stella Artois is a beer, and they had a cooperation. And they had a cooperation with Matt Damon. Matt Damon had a charity, water.org, providing water for women who don't have access to water. Those two guys started cooperating together, and the campaign was about, in the beginning, that if you buy beer, Stella Artois, then some money will go to women who need water. Like, so then, like, I would feel very good about me actually contributing through my alcohol consumption to someone else. Yes, exactly. And when we looked at it even a little bit more, we checked that the production of alcohol was in several of the countries where water.org was actually active, helping women to access alcohol. So they were, and we talked about how much water is needed to produce one liter of beer. So they were actually taking out that water that the women could access to produce beer, and then there would be some small action where the women could access water, and like this kind of things are, these kind of things are happening.
Yeah, it's cognitive dissonance. I mean, isn't it? I mean, I get a charity tries to, there can be all sorts of motivations, and certainly charities aren't into greed. They're not trying to, get, sort of accumulate wealth. So, and Matt Damon, I'm aware of Matt's work, and noble cause. But then you start to partner with the devil, and all of a sudden it's getting sideways, and your brand gets tarnished. And that's one of the things about the haloing. You get this kind of the halo effect for the industry, and the horns for the water people. And it backfires, and your charity actually suffers. And I think, what's disturbing, and you've bumped into this as well, clearly, is that evidence is not just selected and cherry picked, and everyone does that. Confirmation bias is what people trade out of. It's kind of their let's face it, pretty much everyone on the planet has a confirmation bias, and we all jump on the things that we like. We've got a cause. We buy the things we love. We accept that information. Anything that's not quite on that radar, we tend to ignore it or marginalise it. But we've got to be careful when it comes to research, and this is what does my head in, not just in this space, but in every other area, particularly in cannabis and what's happening in cannabis, is that we've now created an environment where hard facts and hard data are completely excised from the marketplace and the conversation. And emotion and soft data and manipulated confirmation bias are all put in this melting pot and then poured down the throat of the unwitting consumer, to use that analogy of swilling, and they go, well, the lens then becomes, I'm doing a good thing, I'm and I think that's that's all part of. One could argue that's just marketing. It can be. It's certainly bordering on an unethical. It's not illegal yet. But when it comes to just flat out lies, flat out in your face, bold face lies, have you experienced any of that?
Yeah, and good that you are bringing this back also, because you actually asked also earlier what the industry is doing, and this is really connected. Another argument that they are having, and that's really a lie, is the impact on employment. So they say that if you, for example, introduce alcohol taxation, that we are advocating really strongly for, because this is the single most effective alcohol policy solution. It reduces lots of harm, it generates revenue, but it also contributes to equality among people and health equity, for example, and to sustainability. So there are so many benefits from alcohol taxation. And when we talk about it like this, the governments are actually listening. And then the industry is really afraid, and they really don't like this. So then they start taking out the employment card and also illegal alcohol card. But when it comes to employment, we have like really concrete examples how much they lie about the impact they have on employment. So for example, they were presenting, I think it was in Uganda, that if the taxation is introduced, then this and this many, and they were talking about several hundreds of thousands of jobs that would be impacted by this. When the independent committee looked at it, they saw that the industry is counting in every single person who is in the retail chain somehow. So even in grocery shops, and the people will not lose jobs if alcohol in grocery shops, if alcohol taxation is increased a bit. So they were like, these are pure lies that they are coming with. And then there are also actually really good facts showing and models showing how little it would impact. And we can also see that if people stop spending on alcohol, they will spend on something else, and very often on something healthier. So there will be still economy going around. It's just that it will not be circling around alcohol. So that is one thing. And the other flat, how did you call it? Flat out lie is the smuggling or the illegal alcohol production. That as soon as we increase or if we regulate the sale of alcohol more, then there will be much more, that there will be illegal production. That is not true. It's not like now the whole Australia will go and buy their distillate and build their own distilleries, or how do you call it?
I know what you're saying. Yep. You're going to create their own stills, their own moonshine stills. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not happening. And we can also actually see that even when the prices of legal alcohol are increased, then even illegal alcohol, when it's like them being sold, the prices also go up, because this is also about people want to earn money anyway, and that also actually influences the availability then. So that the increased price is actually really effective.
Yeah.
And people don't start producing more illegal alcohol. That's not true.
Yeah, that's important. I think the people listening to this, you need to get this. I mean, a lot of people listening, this is not their wheelhouse, or they might be social drinkers, but even that, what we contribute, what we do with our actions, we've got to be a little bit more intentional and a little bit more informed about how we engage. And I think we're not just here to go after the alcohol industry. They're evil. Let's bring them down. That's our mantra and mission in life. No, we're looking at public health. We're looking at community well-being. We're looking at the future of Gen Now, Gen Z, and Gen Next. We're saying, what is it about this? I mean, it's got its history. The problem with alcohol, it's got a lot of history. What is it about this issue and getting behind it, getting behind the celebratory, getting behind the marketing, getting behind all the standard lines that are used to try and keep this flowing, for want of a better term, is we start to actually stop and think, well, what is it about this that I'm really engaging with? Is it a culture that I'm being drawn into? Am I self-medicating? And that's a whole different story, and that obviously needs to be addressed in a different way. But really, when people are intentional about how they engage with a topic or a subject or an issue, and they start to look at the facts that you've been outlining today, only in part, and we encourage all our listeners to drill down into what's been said by Kristina today and what Movendi prevents globally, and Delgado Institute's part of that. We're not just producing anti-alcohol product information. We're bringing to the table public health concerns, public wellbeing concerns, social wellbeing concerns that really need to be addressed. And the amount of money saved in public health, in welfare, and even employment issues is just, and productivity issues is huge. It's just absolutely outstanding. And so I think we've got to get past the well-crafted mantras, and now we're hearing the well-crafted lies, flat out misinformation, disinformation that's being put on the table. Very good. Thank you, Kristina. Very, very good. You went to the 78th World Health Assembly recently, I believe. Is that right? Is there anything that came out of that around alcohol? I know it wasn't a big one on alcohol, but anything fresh that came out of that you think's worth putting on the table now?
This is the thing. In 2022, that was a big year for alcohol because they have approved Global Alcohol Action Plan.
That's right.
Since then, they were supposed to review it already in 2024. They haven't done that. 2025, they haven't done it. Hopefully, they will do it soon to see how it's actually going, what the development is. But this year, 2025, is very important because there is the high-level meeting on non-communicable diseases in the beginning of, in the end of September.
Yeah.
And that's how alcohol has been also discussed now at the World Health Assembly. So that is one really important thing because there is an outcome document coming out of this high-level meeting. That means high-level meeting means that the heads of states are coming to really together declare something about what is it that they want to actually do about non-communicable diseases. This is the fourth one already in our lives. So that's the alcohol has been discussed and is also being discussed now, right now when we are speaking. They are meeting right now, 9th and 10th of July in the United Nations, preparing the document. And there are some good things that are happening, like alcohol is being mentioned more and considered more equal to, for example, tobacco, because the risk factors for non-communicable diseases, those are tobacco, alcohol, then lack of physical activity, and unhealthy nutrition in a way. Right. So, and alcohol used to be really, again, neglected, not talked about, maybe just mentioned in between, but not really, there was no focus. And now it's very normal to say alcohol and tobacco taxes, for example, or alcohol and tobacco policies and these things. So it's gaining a little bit more equal role as like alcohol policy as a solution and alcohol as a risk factor among the other ones. So that's very positive. There is another, now when we can talk about some progress, there is another very good news that comes from the last week. We were in Sevilla in Spain at the Financing for Development. And that is happening only every 10th year. So in 2015, we were advocating for putting in alcohol taxation as a source of domestic resource mobilization.
Yep.
And we have not managed back then. So tobacco taxation has been seen as a source of financing for development, but alcohol tax not. This time, alcohol tax is there. This is fantastic. That's a huge success. Like this 10 years of 10 years of work normalizing alcohol policy as a solution. So we should actually have a party and celebrate. This is huge.
Brilliant. And what better way to celebrate than dry in July? And look, we're gonna close out our interview because I just love the conversation, and obviously your insights because of your investment in the space, but also your engagement with the issues is quite prolific. So thank you for your insights and your depth. It's wonderful, Kristina. But just to finish on a positive note, for those out there listening who are doing dry in July, and maybe again we want to encourage you maybe go beyond July. What's some encouraging words, some sober inspiration from you, Kristina, for our listeners?
I am familiar with Dry January that's going on in Europe, and I have now, of course, Dry July. I guess it's very, very similar to that one. I understand that the effects of taking 1 month off of alcohol are incredible when it comes to sleep. I really like this fact that the older we are getting, we are somehow accepting a society that our sleep will be worse. Like it just comes with age. And now we are learning that it's really not like that. Like we can sleep like babies as well. If, for example, we stay away from alcohol, that alcohol is really, or like being alcohol free is really improving the sleep quality, recovery. Social connections are different. They are real. So for me, that is like, this is really empowering that during this 1 month, you get to experience living outside the alcohol norm. And then you give yourself the chance to see what is it that I actually feel? What is it that I actually want? Who is it that I want to hang out with? So I really encourage it. I also understand that this has so many positive effects also afterwards. Many people really realize that they don't need that substance in their life, that it has been somehow like making them blind to things that are happening around them. They were missing things in their life that they are coming then into their lives when they are alcohol free. So I really hope that more people give themselves the chance to learn more about themselves, learn about their surrounding, and be real to themselves and understand what is it they want and do not want in their lives. That's freedom.
That is freedom. Brilliant. Great way to end their time together. Kristina Spikova, it's been an absolute joy having you on the Unnecessary Harm podcast. And for those out there listening, maybe this is your first one, and you listen to this Dry July experiment. Keep going with it, and until next time, be safe, be healthy.
As we wrap up today's session, remember, each step towards understanding is a step away from unnecessary harm. We're here to empower, inspire, and pave the way for optimal well-being. Stay resilient, stay informed, and continue being the change your community needs. Thank you for joining us at the Unnecessary Harm podcast. Until next time, take care and keep pushing forward.